Gonna take it. Got it! Boston wins!
Two legends in basketball analysis with over 70 years combined experience. This is the Bob Ryan and Jeff Goodman podcast.
NBA, some college, a little bit of everything.
You know, what can I say? But it wasn't going to happen here with him. I was okay with it because it wasn't about talent, I didn't think.
All right, it's that time, folks, for the Bob Ryan, Gary Tangway Zoom and Pod, brought to you by Prize Picks, your exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. Bob Ryan, a little under the weather. So we have one of my prized pupils from my sports radio class at Emerson. Jackson Tolliver is with us. And here's the thing with these young guys. These young guys, I'll tell you, they remember everything. They watch everything. They have no life. They have no responsibility. Okay? So this kid, this kid's the real deal. He is an NBA encyclopedia. He will not disappoint. And one of these days, I have to get he and Ryan on at the same time because Bob Ryan is as well. So it'll be the young versus the old. All right, Jackson, welcome to the show, kiddo. Listen, do you think the playoffs have been disappointing as far as the level of competition?
I would say yes and no. I think there's been some series that have been duds and some series that have been great. The New York-Philadelphia series that just ended yesterday was fantastic. It ended up being a +1 point differential to New York, meaning they scored just one more point than Philly if you add up their point totals throughout the entire series. That was great. There have been some sweeps. There have been some duds. Minnesota sweeping Phoenix is something that I think none of us saw coming. I certainly thought that was going to go deeper, 6 or 7 games maybe. But shout out to Anthony Edwards and all of the Minnesota Timberwolves for, making that series go by quick. Denver, Los Angeles, I think ending in 5, not as much of a shock as that Phoenix Timberwolves series, but still that one's going by. So yeah, I see where you're coming from.
I'm kind of bored though. Like I'm sitting there and I'm looking over the notes. I'm looking over the notes like for you and I to talk, right? And I'm going,
yeah, okay.
The only thing so far that's been worth talking about is New York and Philly. And even Philly is kind of hollow because Embiid isn't healthy.
Well, you had this Orlando-Cleveland series. And the Dallas Clippers series.
Okay, Snoozeville. All right, Orlando and Cleveland are not. They're not big market teams, and I have no. Please look. Have you been to Cleveland?
I started off my college career there, Case Western Reserve University.
So you know what I'm talking about. But
yes.
Cleveland and Orlando. I'm sorry, that's nice. Okay, you're invited to the party, whatever. But you don't really matter. And the same thing. The Dallas is a good story. Good for them. But that doesn't really matter either. I just think I think they've been kind of disappointing, to be quite honest. The New York, I want to talk about the Knicks in depth. The Knicks are a great story. We'll get to that in a minute. But I'm like looking at Phoenix and I'm like, what happened? And the Lakers didn't put up a fight at all. And thank God we have Minnesota and Denver. Really, if I'm sitting in the commissioner's office, I'm like, Jesus, come on, guys, let's get something going.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is that it's more about the market size. Like, you talk about Cleveland
as a city. About the stars of the market size. You're right.
Right.
You're right.
And you talk about Orlando as, like Cleveland and Orlando aren't big name cities. Like, we don't have Golden State this year. We don't have San Francisco, right? So that's a big one off the board. We're lucky enough to have New York still. As New York is the 1A market that's left.
But even then, Jackson, like there's no Steph, there's no LeBron, there's no Durant, there's no.
Well, it's passing the torch. It's this playoff so far has been representative of passing the torch. KD, Steph, and LeBron are all out, right? Imagine that happening 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It was just unfathomable that we would go into a second round without any of those 3 guys. And now it's Tatum, it's Edwards, it's Brunson, it's Jokic, of course. It's, the passing of the guard almost, where you have these guys that are now up and coming and future faces of the league. I would argue Jokic is the best player in the league right now.
Best player
he doesn't
in the
have
world.
The marketability of LeBron and Steph and KD just yet, but this is the second coming. These guys are the next generation,
Jokic,
and they're going to be the ones taking over.
You're right, and I want to get your thoughts seriously on Cleveland and Orlando in a minute because you're a basketball junkie and you've paid attention. Jokic will never have the notoriety because he doesn't want it. I've seen him in one commercial. He's been in one commercial, and I think it's the one that Chris Rock. It's for the NBA. He had to do it.
Yeah, he's in the promos this
Yeah,
year
for the
for the
playoffs.
NBA.
The
But yeah,
playoffs, it's a thing. It's not a thing. Great promo.
right.
He's in it. That guy is losing hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, he's into his horse racing and his, I remember last year when they won the series, they asked him after the game in the press conference, "You excited for the parade?" He said, "What parade? I thought I was going home today." They told him it was on Thursday, and he was, he looked a little pissed off. He is such an interesting guy because basketball in the NBA, so many people think of it as a dream and as like, such a blessing to be able
Right.
to play basketball at that level. That's just his job. That's his 9 to 5. Is what it seems like. And, that's not to say that he's not competitive and he doesn't care when he's in the game. No, he's a super competitive guy. We've seen him screaming. But he just has other hobbies that are outside of basketball when a lot of the other guys live and breathe this stuff and will never be able to get to that level. So he's just a naturally talented athlete. And he's just a gifted basketball player.
Here's a question for you. To me, nobody, well, I'm going to go old bastard on you.
Okay.
When it comes to one player controlling a game, and it's very, it's not easy to do. It's not as easy as people think.
Right.
Russell did it defensively. Okay, that's
Yep.
old bastard Tanguay talking to you.
Yep. I definitely wasn't around yet.
Michael Jordan, LeBron,
Yeah, you got to throw LeBron in there.
and now Jokic. And I think that Jokic controls the game the way Jordan did.
Okay. In terms
I mean,
of
I mean,
on
not
both
not
ends
the
of the
same
ball.
style. Work with me for a minute here.
Okay.
Not the same style, but Jokic will have 15 assists and 2 points and totally control the game. Jordan would control the game with steals and defense, and with he started winning when he actually started passing to Paxton and those guys and Kerr. But you know what I mean? And I don't know if Jokic is ever going to be recognized for that. Like if you look at player to player,
He won't.
he won't because he's not flashy and he doesn't have a Nike deal.
Yeah, the kids these days talk about aura, a player
Right.
having an aura about them. Some players have it and some players don't. Jokic is an incredibly gifted player, and it's hard to argue that he's not the best player in the NBA right now, but he doesn't have that aura. He doesn't have that
Right.
cool factor that Jordan had, that Allen Iverson had. Today, like Jayson Tatum has.
Right.
Jimmy Butler has it. So that's another factor of like how marketable are you outside of the sport itself. But going back to what you said about controlling the game, yeah, I mean, for now it's like him, Embiid, and Giannis are the guys that are just so dominant in what they do, and just control the game really on both ends. Particularly more so with I would say Embiid and Giannis are better defenders than Jokic. But what Jokic is able to do, I mean, automatic triple double. Basically, every time he steps out, you have to game plan entirely for him, and then that's what makes Denver so good is that they have Jamal Murray, who is one of the strangest players in the NBA. In that throughout the whole
agree.
regular season,
Right.
he's just your average Joe.
Right.
I guess you're slightly above average Joe, and then he comes in the playoffs and he turns into prime Michael Jordan. It's the most bizarre thing in the world with Jamal Murray, and that's what makes Denver so dangerous is that you have Jokic, who's able to control the game so much. And then you're like, oh yeah, we got to worry about this guy who's, who we saw what he did to the Lakers, right? He ended their game twice and put them away in 5 games.
So, all right. Well, let's now. I had a question there. I just spaced it for a minute. Sorry, it'll come back to me. That's right. It'll come back to me later on. All right. Now let's move. I'm going to let you talk about Cleveland, Orlando from a basketball perspective.
Okay.
Okay. From a basketball perspective, why do you like that series? Because I'm not paying attention to it.
Yeah, I've watched just about every game of the playoffs so far, and this series is definitely one of the more competitive ones. But it didn't start out that way. Cleveland had 2 really convincing wins against them. I thought Cleveland had a chance to sweep, and then they got embarrassed in Game 3. They lost by 38, almost 40. They couldn't get anything going. Paolo Banchero looked like a god amongst men. And Game 4, they also had a pretty embarrassing loss. I believe that one was around 25 or so. And then Game 5, it was a really close Cleveland win. So it's gone the direction of the home team has won every time. And that's kind of what you would expect with teams that are, I mean, Orlando's a super young team. No one's really expecting them to do anything this year. Paolo Banchero, it's just his second year. He's a future star. He definitely is. I would say he's a future superstar. He's a star right now, but he's on the way up. And Cleveland, you have Donovan Mitchell, but you have guys like Mobley, Garland, who are good, but they're still young and they don't have that playoff success yet. And that is what a home court advantage can do for you. Makes you feel comfortable. The crowd's getting behind you. I mean, that's why teams are statistically usually better at home. So that's what I kind of expected for this series because these teams are so young and they need that sort of oomph, that fan support to put them over the edge, which is why I have Orlando winning tonight's game, and this one's going to 7, which means Celtics fans are going to have to wait until Tuesday for the second round to start. But this is an interesting series. It's a lot of size, physicality. Cleveland obviously has that double big lineup with Mobley and Allen. But it's matched up pretty well in Orlando, where they have size basically all across the board. The Wagner brothers are tall. Paolo Banchero is tall. So they have a lot of that size and strength and physicality. And going into the second round against the Celtics, either one of them, I think, can give them a tough time because of their size. And
okay, when you say a tough time, like, I mean, how tough? How much of an impact? Because you're looking, people think it's whoever wins, the Celtics are going to win in 6. Minimum.
Yeah, I would say 6 if Cleveland wins and 5 if Orlando wins. And the only reason why I say 5 if Orlando wins is because of the inexperience. I think that Celtics are going to easily win the first 2 games at home against Orlando. Orlando will steal 1, if not 2, and then Celtics will wrap it up in 5. Cleveland concerns me because there's no KP. So the rebounding is going to be tough because again, that also depends on Jarrett Allen, who's dealing with a rib injury right now. He was out for game 5. I don't know his status for tonight, but if he was, unable to play also, that would help the Celtics. But it's going to be tough to get over the hump without Porzingis in this matchup. If it's Cleveland, if it's Orlando, I think it's easier because it's like they also have size, but they don't have that double big. So I'm a little bit less concerned, but there's no way that either one of these teams beat the Celtics in my opinion. It would take a colossal meltdown for that to happen.
Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is so easy to play. I can make my Celtic picks and make my entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals and easy gameplay and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. Celtics and NBA fans, you can get in on Prize Picks in 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. On Prize Picks this week, I'm selecting Jayson Tatum to dish out more than 5 assists and his teammate Jaylen Brown to have more than 22.5 points. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit matchup to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Prize Picks. Okay, now I remember the question that I forgot before. Is Wembanyama the next big thing? Because we talked about, the reason I brought this up, because we just talked about, the Joker, and he doesn't want to be the star. And while you mentioned all those other players, they're all terrific players, but I don't know if they're that thing that, Bird, Magic, Michael, LeBron, I think we're kind of in a valley a little bit. So is he the guy? Is Wembanyama going to be the next big thing?
I mean, he's definitely the next big thing in terms of his physical size. He's a specimen, but I know what you mean in terms of like, is he the next up?
Like at 24 years old, is he going to be phenomenal?
I don't see why not. I mean, he has all the skills, the fundamentals, the size to be that way. He had a great rookie season. He's going to be rookie of the year. He's probably going to be first team all defense, I would say. He led the league in blocks per game. So he has the two-way abilities that can put him in that upper echelon of players. A lot of people are saying that the Spurs are kind of the dark horse, the elephant in the room, if you will, for the years to come. It's OKC and San Antonio, especially if they can add pieces around Wembanyama. But yeah, I mean, if he works on that, pull-up game, like if he can blend Kevin Durant with Shaquille O'Neal and combine those two games together, yeah, I don't see how you can stop that. He has a long way to go before he's there, but all the talent is there. And from what I've heard, his work ethic is there. I've heard this kid doesn't party, he doesn't drink.
Right.
He's fully locked in. So I don't see why not. And he also has the luxury of having one of the greatest coaches ever in the association, in Greg Popovich.
Oh yeah.
Who knows how much longer he's going to be sticking around.
Oh,
but
he's sticking around.
If
now.
I was picking one guy to develop me, that'd be the guy, because he's a winning coach and he's a great coach.
I thought Pop would be gone. Pop even said, after Duncan leaves, he's out. He's stuck around and he's got this kid. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Why would you? You got a great opportunity in front of you to develop the next phase.
With the Knicks, I want to get back to the Knicks right now.
Okay.
If they were not in New York, and if they weren't the Knicks, they would be my second favorite team in the NBA. I mean, if you're a basketball, how can you not love you love these guys? I mean, I love Thibodeau. I knew Thibodeau a little bit. Love Tibbs. The Brunson kid has exceeded everybody's expectations. Had a big night the other night. I mean, I love them.
I mentioned aura. This Knicks team has the most aura out of any team, maybe, besides maybe Anthony Edwards on the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is because these guys all played together, right? DiVincenzo, Hart, and Brunson all played on the same college team, so they have that chemistry. They're so much fun to watch, especially Brunson. I mean, you mentioned that he exceeded a lot of expectations. I thought the Knicks were crazy for giving him the money that they did.
The man you're filling in for, Bob Ryan, said the same thing.
Yeah, I thought they were crazy. Yes, he played well in the stretches that Luka was out on the Mavericks, but I did not think that he was a 1A player, and that was I don't think I've ever been more wrong about anything in the NBA. I mean, he is a star. He is a superstar. There are times this season where he's been the best player in the East, better than Giannis, better than Tatum, better than Embiid. Like, there have been times when he's been that guy. He struggled in the first two games of this series, shooting-wise, maybe some playoff jitters. He obviously still – actually, I shouldn't say he doesn't have playoff experience, because he did have some nice runs with the Mavericks there. But he doesn't have a lot of experience being the guy, the 1A, because he was playing with Luka for a lot of that time. Last year, they went 2 rounds before losing to the Heat, who eventually went to the NBA Finals. And this year, now they're here. So he struggled in the first 2 games. But, 40-something last night.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's a star. And Josh Hart is the exact type of player that everyone wants on your team. He is the perfect role player, knows his job, can give you 48 minutes, no problem, incredible stamina. He is just everything that you want. Great defensive player. DiVincenzo can knock down timely shots. OG Anunoby, one of the best pickups of the season in the entire NBA. The perfect 3-and-D guy. He's the perfect complement to them. If they had kept with RJ Barrett, it's a totally different story. He just complements them so much better than RJ Barrett did, because they didn't need scoring. They needed defense. And OG Anunoby has been someone who's been on the trade block, in the rumor mills for a long time, because of his ability to guard just about anyone on the court, and knock down threes when called upon. And that's his job, and he does it very well. And the Knicks have been borderline unbeatable while OG is on the court. Now, if you still had Randall in the mix as well, this would be a very, very scary team that would definitely be championship contenders. And that's not to say that they're not. I would say they certainly are, but they're going to have a tough time getting through Boston, especially a fully healthy Boston. If Porzingis is able to return by the Eastern Conference Finals, they're going to have trouble getting by them just because of size. But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to root for these guys, because it's such a inspiring story. Like Hartenstein also. Let's talk about that guy. I mean, nobody thought that he was going to be as good as he is right now. He's playing so well, out of his mind, and the whole team, top to bottom, is just remarkable. And they're so likable. They have their podcast, Hart and Brunson, and you're right. It's tough not to like them. It's tough not to root for them. But if it comes to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, we know we know who we're going for with that. Playoff time, there is nothing like it. I mean, the energy, the effort amps up a good 50 to 75% compared to the regular season. And that's why you want to go to GameTime, the authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA. Now, they make getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. And here's the deal with the GameTime app. The prices of those tickets go down the closer you get to tip-off. They've got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and you can also get the view from your seats with the lowest price guaranteed. GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. So here's what you should do. You download the GameTime app and you browse it, and you can see that You can get Celtics and Bruins playoff tickets for less than $150. And again, the closer to game time you get, the lower the ticket price is. These are terrific deals for big-time postseason games. Last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute sports, concert, comedy, theater tickets. All-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows that the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout and also the lowest price guaranteed. Or GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. So, take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets at GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS and get $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Is there going to be any fallout in Milwaukee, or do they just bring it back for next year? That's the one.
Well,
thing
Dame said last night that Dame said last night in the postgame that he is eager for another year in Milwaukee. You don't know how much water you can, or how much weight you can put there. We all remember Kyrie Irving with the Celtics told everyone he was going to re-sign at the beginning of the year, and we all know how that went. He's still on contract with them, and here's the thing. Dame wants to be in Miami. We all know that. We knew that last summer. He was very adamant that he wanted to be in Miami, and the league stepped in and said, hey, you can't really do that. And he backtracked and said, nope, I'll go anywhere. I'll go anywhere I want. He didn't want to come to Boston. We knew that. Milwaukee was always kind of there because it would be interesting. Everyone thought it'd be interesting to see him paired up with Giannis. But it was always Miami until the day he got traded. Everybody thought he was going to Miami. And then he was traded to Milwaukee, and it comes out that he's going through a divorce. And he comes out saying, I've had some really tough times because I've never been to Milwaukee. I assume there's not a lot to do there. And it gets cold. It's definitely no Miami.
No Miami.
He wanted to be in Miami.
Milwaukee, I will say this, young man. Milwaukee is better than Cleveland, and it's an underrated town.
Okay, fair enough. But it's not Miami, you would say.
It's not Miami, no.
Yeah. So he wants to be in Miami on the beach, and I think that system would suit him very well. So if he ends up going anywhere, I think that's where it's going to be. But again, it's tough to look at this Milwaukee Bucks team and say blow it up because Giannis wasn't playing the whole time. And throughout the entire regular season, as a Celtics fan, Milwaukee was the team that I was the most afraid of.
We all were.
Because they stomped the Celtics twice at home. Like, embarrassing stomped. Yet again, the second one, the Celtics weren't really playing because they had already clinched the one seed in the league or whatever. But the first one, which was in like February or March, yeah, that was just straight up embarrassing. And that was a disgusting performance from the Celtics. And I was very nervous about the possibility of playing Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference Finals. And last night, before the game, when they were saying Dame's coming back, Giannis is trying to come back, he could be good to go, I was thinking Milwaukee's going to force 7 and end up somehow in Eastern Conference Finals. Luckily, for Celtics fans, that didn't happen.
Right.
But, I would have a hard time if I was the GM blowing this whole thing up. There are some changes you have to make. I think Brook Lopez it's tough to justify keeping him, and Bobby Portis as well. Bobby Portis still has some trade value, and they need some youth on that team. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, they got that kid, Andre Jackson, who balls. They need more of that intensity and energy and defense as well. After losing Drew, they fell off defensively pretty hard, and, that's expected if you lose one of, if not the best perimeter defender in the entire NBA. But they need to adjust and figure out how they can get some of that defensive intensity back.
I would bring it back. I mean, if I'm the owner, I'm not letting anybody go. You hope that Giannis is healthy and you give it another shot. They screwed up the coaching situation, and you got to stick with one guy and stick with Doc and give him a chance to do it and make another run at it.
You have to stick with your personnel. I mean, Embiid last night after they lost said that, every year that he's been there, it's been something different.
Right.
And if you look at a team like Denver or Golden State, they were able to be successful because they stuck with their core guys throughout a long period of time and gave them time to mesh. Jamal Murray and Jokic have been together for like 7 or 8 years. Murray even tore his ACL and was out for a whole year, and they didn't panic. They stuck with their guys, and they kept going until it worked, and now they're, if not second favorites to win, the favorites. So, yeah, I would definitely agree with you. I think you have to run it back. This season is a wash. You didn't have your best player, who's going to be All-NBA, in the playoffs, and you can't look at this series as a failure because of that simple fact.
Because of the things that you say, we all say, well, it's the Celtics are lucky that the Knicks aren't healthy. Or if Milwaukee was 100%, the Celtics could really be in trouble in the Eastern Conference Finals if they met them there. So when you say things like that, and not just you, but are we overrating the Celtics?
No, because the Celtics had a historically great season where they finished 4th in net rating. I would take the Celtics over any team in the NBA in a 7-game series unless they just beat themselves.
Wait, no, whoa. Okay.
That being said, Denver's tough.
Wait, you would take the Celtics straight up in a 7-game series over Denver?
Yeah, I was just gonna get into that. Denver's tough. But yes, I would, based off talent alone and based off.
I'm taking Denver all the way, but go ahead, elaborate.
Based off the box, the roster, top to bottom, right? Boston is a better team in terms of who you have on the roster than Denver. Boston performed better in the regular season than Denver. Yes, Denver beat Boston 2-0. Denver has a better coach. Denver has a better 1A than anybody else, who's basically unguardable. You can't contain Nikola Jokic. You just can't. So Denver is definitely the biggest threat to Boston's banner this year, which is why I think a lot of other Celtics fans should be pulling for Minnesota in this series. I think that's an easier matchup if they can squeak it out. But I agree with you. It's going to be tough if you're Denver. But to go back on your question of if the Celtics are overrated, no, because they did everything in the regular season to prove that they're legit, to prove that they have the potential to win a banner. So I wouldn't say they're overrated at all. This path to the finals that they've been absolutely blessed with is too good of an opportunity to squander, even with or without Kristaps Porzingis, because you had a very injured Miami without their best player, 4-1. Should have been a sweep, frankly. I was disappointed that it wasn't 4-0. Now you have either Cleveland or Orlando, and Cleveland might give you some trouble. Orlando could also give you some trouble. But if you look at teams like what you could have had, a healthy Bucks team, a healthy New York team, a healthy Philly team, I'd even rather have these two teams than Indiana, who gave the Celtics trouble during the regular season. Okay, that's easy. Then you go to the Eastern Conference Finals, you either have a very injured New York team, Indiana. It's either New York or Indiana at this point because Philly's out and Milwaukee's out. So that, again, it's like that should be easy for the Celtics. So they should have a very easy run to the finals, and if they don't, it's going to be incredibly disappointing. But no, I don't think this team is overrated at all. I think they're properly rated, and the way that they're rated is they were so good during the regular season. It was like a top 5 Celtics record in franchise history, and they should be the favorites. So no, I don't think they're overrated at all.
So you're saying if they lose to Denver in the title game, it's because they beat themselves?
That's what I would assume. I would assume that they went with some pretty ISO-heavy basketball instead of moving the ball. I would assume that Jayson Tatum or Jaylen Brown had a few stinkers of games. Maybe both of them didn't show up. I would assume Derek White played well. I can't imagine Derek White playing badly in that series. But I would assume that it would be a result of Tatum or Brown, and if Kristaps Porzingis can't go, they're going to get beaten on the glass.
Well, that's
on and so forth.
I want to get to Porzingis, but my feeling is I think they're getting to the finals, and I think they're going to face Denver. I'm one of those guys that I want them to play Denver. I had a big argument with Bob last time because, the Celtics in 81, 84, and 86, it was 2 times against Houston, 1 time against the Lakers. And, still, I wish it had been the Lakers all 3 times. But, Bob's point is, look, you still had to beat the Rockets beat the Lakers, so forth and so on. But I want them to play Denver. If they played Minnesota and won, for me, it would be a little hollow. I want them to play the best.
No, I don't think there's such thing as a hollow championship. I mean, a banner is a banner, and I understand that point that you don't want people to say that you had an easy road.
Right.
But Also, Minnesota's legit. You don't take any credit away from Minnesota. Anthony Edwards, while I think he's becoming a little bit overrated, I still don't think he's in that like top 5 player area. He's a stud and he's a future superstar. He already is a superstar.
Bob said if there's one person that could approach Jordan, it's him.
No, I don't think so. And I think we're a little bit too high on him as a basketball community. Just a little bit. I think there's still 5 players in the NBA who are better than him.
Oh, who's better than
him?
What do you got?
I would say Giannis, Jokic, Luka, Embiid. Maybe he's 5.
Tatum?
No. Anthony Edwards is better than Tatum at this point.
Okay.
In terms of just his, but then again, that's also a tough one because Tatum's on a more offensively talented team.
Balanced team,
yeah. So Tatum had 16 points in the last game against Miami. You look at that, you're like, geez, only 16 points for Tatum, but it was on 9 shots. So he just is in a situation where he doesn't have to score as much, which is good. It shows that he's, more about the team right now than his own numbers, but it's tough to put him in that top 5 category because he's not he's still the guy, but he's not the only source of offense for the Celtics team right now.
Okay,
so maybe he's 5th, maybe he's 6th, and I'm sure there's someone that I'm stupidly forgetting. But he took KD's spot for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
He embarrassed KD in that series, and that Suns team. I don't know where they go from here. I know you guys already talked about that on the pod, so I won't get too into it. But
Minnesota, Denver. What does Minnesota have to do to upset Denver?
Minnesota has the best chance of containing Jokic because of the way that team is constructed. You have a double big lineup. You have Rudy Gobert, who's going to be the defensive player of the year.
How is he in the perimeter?
So that's on the perimeter?
Yeah, because that's where Jokic is going to be a lot.
Well, you have Jaden McDaniels as well, who's another incredible defender. I mean, top to bottom, besides Mike Conley, Minnesota is a great defensive team in terms of their starting unit and some of the guys that they even bring off the bench. So you have Gobert, who's going to be in the paint. He's probably the best rim protector in the NBA. You have McDaniels, who embarrassed KD as well, who embarrassed really the entire Phoenix Suns team with the way he was able to play defense, and he's been great all year. So you have to use that to your advantage. And then offensively, if Anthony Edwards is a top 5 player, and I'm wrong, this is his chance to prove it. If he wants to prove to the world that he is the guy and that he has a chance to be a top player, to be the face of this league, if he wants to approach Jordan, what a start this would be, right? To beat KD and now go in and defeat the defending champs who have home court advantage over you and knock out Jokic and Jamal Murray. It's a tall order for any team to do, but this is a place to start. So, yeah, for me, it's all about the defense. Just keep doing what you've been doing. Capitalize on the talent that you have. And then on offense, let Anthony Edwards go. And let's see if he is that guy, because this is his biggest test he's ever had to face in his career so far.
All right, to wrap it up, Porzingis, how bad is it? Does he have to play in the Eastern Conference Finals? And obviously, they need him for the finals.
Well, I don't know. It's tough to say. If you told me today that his season was over, I wouldn't think that the Celtics' title hopes are over because they were 21-4 without him during the regular season, 9-3 without him against playoff teams. Yes, he helps. Yes, he's a great player. But to me, Porzingis is a luxury, not a necessity. And what I mean by that is that Boston has enough talent to win games without him, right? We've seen what Jayson Tatum can do on the biggest stage. He dropped 50 in Game 7 against Philly.
Denver?
Maybe. I mean, the other thing with the Celtics team is that they play better with their backs against the wall. They're down 3-0 to Miami, and they win 3 in a row, and then they're the favorites again, and they lose in Game 7. Right? They're down 3-2 in Milwaukee the year before, and Tatum comes out and explodes for 2 games in a row. They're down 2 games to Philly last year. Tatum explodes for 2 games in a row. So the team is sometimes better in the playoffs when they need to be, and of course they haven't won a banner yet, so that goes to only a certain point before it stops. But you got to trust in playoff Al Horford. I mean, Al Horford, he's not going to have the most eye-popping numbers, but he's going to have the hustle. He is going to play great defense for as long as you need him to, 30 minutes. Hopefully they can just keep him at 30 minutes. And guess who you have coming out behind him? Luke Kornet, who's actually emerged as a very serviceable big man in this league. I thought he's done a great job. I thought he was great. What was it? Two nights ago against Miami. He held Bam on some really, really good opportunities for him. and played great defense, I thought. So Luke Cornett, to me, is also serviceable. And this is also why they went out and got Xavier Tillman. For certain matchups, he can also be very serviceable. He's tough. He's really good at defense. Yes, both Cornett and Tillman don't even come close to sniffing what Porzingis can do on offense, but those guys can hold it down defensively. So I think they'll be just fine. I would love for them to rest him as long as possible. And in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm predicting Celtics-Knicks. I don't think you need him for that series because the Knicks don't have as much size. So I think they can match up pretty well. I would rather have Porzingis for this Cleveland series. That might happen because he matches up against the size better. It would be nice to have him in New York because he has that revenge mentality because of how things shook up when he was in New York. And I think he would be really good. He's been really good against New York this year. But yeah, the finals is where you really need all your guys firing away, especially if it's Denver. And he's played well against Denver this year as well. So it'd be really nice to have him back then. But if he was to be shut down for the rest of the year, which I don't think, from what I've heard, is going to happen, I wouldn't totally put it past the Celtics to still be able to win this thing. It'll be a little more difficult, but I think they could still do it.
I think he's back for the finals. My key for the Celtics in the finals, if they were to beat Denver, Holiday has to control the offense in the final 2 minutes of the game, and they have to run offense. And if they trust Holiday to quarterback and get the ball to the right person, they can win it. Because there's going to be some close games. I mean, there's not going to be many blowouts, I don't think. And they have to, in Holiday, we trust. And if they do that, because he does have a ring, I think they're in good shape.
And I think, also trust Derek White to be
Same
the guy
thing.
taking
I
the
agree.
shots.
Absolutely.
He's the most clutch player, I think,
Agreed.
on the team. And I mean, the other thing that slightly concerns me before you wrap it up about the Celtics is that all 4 of their wins against Miami Heat were blowouts. I still am worried about their crunch time offense. Like you said, in a final series versus Denver, none of those games are going to be close. Right. No. So I agree. Let Holiday play quarterback. You don't even need him taking that many shots a game. Maybe you do now to make up for that production that you're losing with Porzingis. But I think Derek White in the clutch should be the guy. And what do teams do if they have to give that much energy to Tatum, Brown, and now Derek White as well as high-quality shot makers? It's going to be tough.
Well, Jackson, next time we'll record it.
You're a funny guy. You're a funny guy. You got
Jackson Tolliver filling in for Bob Bryant. Did you ever think you would be filling in for a Hall of Famer?
Well, it's funny when the intro says over 70 years combined experience. I think I have about 70 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe 70 days.
Maybe you can do something about that. Okay,
Yeah,
Bob Bryant, Gary Tangway, Zoom It Pod brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive fantasy partner of CLNS Media. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with Prize Picks. Jackson, great job. And we will do it again soon.
Appreciate you having me, man. Take care.